Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I work at a warehouse, and this past year has been brutal. Our hours got cut, and I've been barely scraping by with 40 hours a week. Every penny counts when you're trying to keep the lights on, you know? My ex and I split up about a year ago. It wasn't dramatic, we just grew apart. Or at least, that's what I thought until this whole mess started. I noticed my bank account was draining faster than usual. At first, I blamed it on my reduced hours, but something didn't add up. Last weekend, I finally sat down and went through my statements with a fine-tooth comb looking for subscriptions I could cut. That's when I saw them. Dozens of charges I didn't recognize, all to Microsoft. When I logged into my Microsoft account, my blood started boiling. Every single charge was linked to my ex's email address. We're talking multiple charges of $106.99 for Roblox. Not just one or two, but several of them. I called my ex immediately. I brought up the charges on my card linked to his email. He casually mentioned that he had discovered his son was using my card on his Xbox. When I asked why he hadn't told me about this, he just said he had wiped his son's hard drive when he found out. I pointed out that this didn't help me get my money back and asked how long he had known about it. He admitted he had been getting the receipts in his email. I was shocked and asked how he could not question his son spending over $100 multiple times on my card. He tried to defend it by saying his son thought it was his mom's card. I called him out on this nonsense, asking why his new wife's card would be linked to his email. He then tried to smooth things over by promising to pay me back. When I asked when and for how much, he claimed he needed to check the charges. I told him I had already calculated it, over $800. He seemed surprised by the amount and stammered that he would need some time. I wasn't having any of it. After the call, I contacted my credit card company and explained the situation. They opened a fraud investigation and advised me to file a police report, which I did immediately. The next day, my ex's new wife called me. She was furious about the police report, saying my ex had promised to pay me back. I explained that he had months to question these charges and did nothing, so I wasn't taking any chances. She tried to guilt-trip me by saying her stepson was just a child and I was going to ruin his life over a few video game purchases. I reminded her that it was hundreds of dollars and that her stepson was 15, not 5, old enough to know better. She then revealed they were going through financial difficulties and demanded I drop the police report. I told her that was their problem, pointing out that I was having financial difficulties too because they stole from me. She insisted it wasn't theft but a mistake. I called her out, saying a mistake that went on for months while both she and my ex ignored it was definitely theft. 2 days later, my ex showed up at my workplace. He begged me to drop everything, offering to pay in installments. I refused, telling him he had plenty of time to handle this right, and now the credit card company and police were involved. He tried to downplay it, saying I was being ridiculous and it wasn't that much money. I pointed out his contradiction. If it wasn't that much money, why hadn't he paid it back already? The credit card company ruled in my favor after their investigation. They refunded all the unauthorized charges and are pursuing my ex for the money. The police also filed charges for credit card fraud. Turns out my ex had actually told his son he could use the card because he thought I wouldn't notice with small charges. The only reason it escalated to such large amounts was that his son got greedy. Right now, my ex is facing criminal charges and his son is doing community service. Karen keeps trying to contact me through mutual friends, claiming I'm heartless for destroying their family over a simple mistake. But you know what? I don't feel bad at all. It was the middle of winter, and I had just gotten my first real paycheck from my new job at the coffee shop downtown. I had been saving up for months to buy myself a nice winter jacket, and I finally had enough money to get the one I'd been eyeing at the mall. It was this beautiful dark blue winter jacket with silver zippers. Nothing too fancy, but it was warm and exactly what I needed. I remember being so excited when I bought it 3 days ago. The store even had a sale going on, so I got it for 20% off. It felt like the universe was finally giving me a break after months of struggling to find a job after graduating high school. Today, I was meeting my best friend at the mall for lunch. We hadn't seen each other in a while since she started college, and I was working different shifts at the coffee shop. I got to the mall early and decided to window shop while waiting for her. I was looking at some shoes in a store window when suddenly I felt someone grab my arm really hard. A woman started screaming at me, accusing me of being a thief and claiming that the jacket I was wearing belonged to her. I turned around to find this woman, probably in her 40s, with that typical Karen haircut, literally gripping my arm. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak for a moment. When I finally found my voice, I asked her what she was talking about. She responded by yelling that this was her jacket and that she had been robbed 2 weeks ago, insisting that this was exactly the same jacket that was stolen from her. I tried to explain that I had just bought the jacket 3 days ago from the store upstairs and that I still had the receipt at home. She called me a liar and kept insisting it was her jacket, pointing out the silver zippers as proof. She started trying to pull the jacket off me right there in the middle of the mall. People were starting to stare, and I was getting really scared and embarrassed. I begged her to let go, telling her she was hurting me. She refused, saying she wouldn't let go until I returned what she claimed was her jacket. I tried to pull away from her, but she had such a tight grip on my jacket. As I struggled to get free, I heard a horrible ripping sound. She had torn a huge hole in the sleeve of my brand new jacket. I cried out about her ruining my jacket, but she just screamed that it was her jacket and threatened to do worse if I didn't give it to her right then. I finally managed to break free, but she lost her balance and fell to the floor. Instead of staying down, she jumped right back up and came at me like some crazy person, scratching at my face and arms with her long nails. I could feel them breaking my skin, and I started crying from the pain. That's when my friend finally showed up and saw what was happening. She immediately ran over and shoved the woman away from me, yelling at her to get away from me and calling her crazy. The woman kept screaming about me being a thief and demanding that someone call security and the police. A mall security guard had already started heading our way when he heard all the commotion. Two of them came over, and Karen immediately started ranting to them about how I had stolen her jacket and demanding that they arrest me, repeating her story about being robbed 2 weeks ago. The security guard tried to calm everyone down, saying they would sort everything out. I explained that I had bought the jacket 3 days ago from the store upstairs and offered to prove it with security footage, telling them about how this woman had attacked me for no reason. The security guards noticed the scratches on my face and arms, which were starting to bleed. They called the police, and Karen looked so smug, probably thinking I was about to get arrested. When the police arrived, I explained everything calmly. My friend backed up my story, and the mall security had already pulled up the footage from 3 days ago showing me buying the jacket. They even found footage of Karen attacking me just now. The store manager came down and confirmed that yes, they did sell that exact jacket, and they had several more in stock. It wasn't even a unique piece. The police officer asked Karen if she had filed a police report about her allegedly stolen jacket. When she admitted she hadn't, the officer pointed out how ridiculous it was that she had assaulted me over a jacket she claimed was stolen but never reported, especially since it was currently being sold in the mall. Karen started to stutter and make excuses, but it was too late. The police arrested her for assault and battery. I pressed charges, and she ended up getting convicted. The judge ordered her to pay for my jacket, my medical bills for the scratches. I needed a tetanus shot and had to get 2 of the deeper scratches treated, and she got community service plus mandatory anger management classes. The store where I bought the jacket even gave me a new one for free when they heard what happened. My friend took pictures of all my injuries before they healed, which really helped with the court case. And finally, Karen had also been banned from the mall permanently. I grew up in a small southern town where church was less of a Sunday activity and more of a lifestyle. I'd spent 20 years perfecting the art of deflecting questions about girlfriends with practiced charm and carefully worded responses. My mama had always been the type to plan everyone's lives 10 steps ahead. By the time I was in high school, she'd already picked out names for my future children and had strong opinions about what kind of woman would be suitable for her precious baby boy. My three siblings had followed her carefully laid out plans to the letter: college, marriage, kids, all wrapped up in a neat little bow of Southern propriety. That evening, watching her arrange cheese straws on her favorite crystal platter for her weekly bridge club, something in me just snapped. Maybe it was the way she'd spent the last hour talking about the pastor's daughter who'd grown into such a lovely young lady and how she was just perfect for me. I told my mama I needed to tell her something. She was still arranging another cheese straw when she asked if it could wait, calling me sugar and mentioning that her ladies would be there in 20 minutes. That's when I simply told her I was gay. The crystal platter crashed to the floor. I still remember how the cheese straws scattered across her pristine kitchen tiles like pickup sticks. She clutched her pearls and called out to the Lord, asking me to repeat what I just said. So I did, telling her plainly that I was gay and that I'd known for a while. What followed was what I can only describe as a Southern Gothic meltdown of epic proportions. My mama, usually the picture of composure, wailed loud enough to wake the dead. She called my daddy, who came home early from his law office. She called my siblings. She called her sister. She called her pastor. It was like watching someone work through the 5 stages of grief while simultaneously organizing a church phone tree. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. Our house turned into what looked like a Christian bookstore's Save Your Soul section. Every surface had some sort of pamphlet or book about choosing the right path or overcoming unwanted desires. I found brochures for what they called spiritual healing camps tucked under my pillow. One day she broke down and told me I was supposed to be her sure thing. She went on about how my sister had her career, my older brother had his wanderlust, and how my youngest brother could barely take care of himself. But me, I was supposed to give her grandbabies. When I tried to explain that I could still have children if I wanted to, she just dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief and insisted it wouldn't be the same. About a year into this drama, she made her grand announcement over Sunday dinner. She put down her fork and told me she'd been thinking about my situation. Then she told me that too, when the time came, she probably wouldn't be able to bring herself to attend my wedding. The table went silent. My daddy suddenly became very interested in his green beans. All I could say was, "Yes, ma'am." I wasn't even dating anyone at the time. Hadn't mentioned marriage or relationships or anything of the sort. But my mama had always been talented at creating drama out of thin air. 3 years passed. I'd built a life for myself in the city 2 hours away, coming home for holidays and the occasional Sunday dinner. My mama had settled into a pattern of pretending I was just going through an extremely long phase. Then came another Sunday dinner, another unprompted announcement. She set down her sweet tea and told me, with a long dramatic pause, that she'd been praying on it. Then she announced that when I got married, she'd like to be there. She said it like she was announcing she'd been nominated for sainthood, like she was doing me the biggest favor in the world. 24 years of dealing with her dramatics had prepared me for this moment. I put on my sweetest smile, the one I'd learned from her. With my own matching dramatic pause, I sweetly told her that if she was invited, I'd be sure to let her know. The silence that followed was beautiful. My daddy actually choked on his chicken. My siblings suddenly developed a fascinating interest in their napkins. And my mama, for the first time in her life, she was speechless. She spent the rest of dinner opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water, while I enjoyed my peach cobbler with the satisfaction of someone who'd finally mastered the art of Southern passive aggressiveness. These days, she's much more careful about making grand proclamations about my future, and whenever she starts getting too dramatic, I just smile sweetly and mention how I'm thinking about having a destination wedding in Key West. That usually quiets her right down. I'm 27 and work as a dental hygienist. 3 years ago, I desperately needed a car to get to work since public transport in my area is terrible. My credit score wasn't great back then. I had some student loan issues that I'd rather not get into. After months of searching, I finally found a perfect used Honda Civic within my budget, but I needed a co-signer for the loan. My mom stepped up to help. She was always supportive like that, helping me get back on my feet whenever I stumbled. We went to the dealership together, and she co-signed the loan, which put both our names on the title. I was making all the payments myself, and I only had about 8 months left to pay it off completely. Then, 2 months ago, my mom passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. It was devastating. My dad had passed away 5 years earlier from cancer, so losing mom felt like my whole world had crumbled. My sister, being the responsible one with a law degree, became the executor of mom's will. That's when things got weird. My sister called me one evening, her voice tense. She told me we needed to talk about my car. When I asked what was wrong, she explained that, according to mom's will, she was leaving her share of my Honda to her friend Linda. I told her that couldn't be right, since it was my car. My sister just replied that she was only telling me what was in the will, and that Linda had already called her asking about it. I was shocked. My mom had never mentioned anything about this to me. Linda was her friend from her book club. They'd known each other for maybe 3 years at most. I'd only met her twice at mom's house during Christmas parties. The next day, I got a call from Linda herself. She started by offering her condolences about my mom, calling her a dear friend. After I thanked her, she got straight to the point about the car. She told me she was calling to discuss when she could come pick it up. When I asked her what she meant, she explained that since my mother had left her share to her, she would be needing the keys and registration. I tried to explain that I had been making all the payments and it was my car, but she wouldn't listen. She told me she knew this was hard, but it was my mother's wish. She suggested we could work something out, even proposing that I could buy her share. I was furious and pointed out that I had already paid for almost the entire car. That's when she got stern with me, telling me not to take that tone with her and that she was trying to be reasonable. She gave me 3 days to think about it before she would get her lawyers involved. I immediately called a probate lawyer. During our consultation, he confirmed what I had hoped. Since my name was on the title and I'd been making all the payments, my mom couldn't give away my share of the car. At most, Linda could only claim my mom's co-signer portion, but even that was questionable since my mom's name was only on there for the loan. 3 days later, Linda called again. She asked if I had made my decision. I told her I had spoken to a lawyer and explained that she had no claim to my car, as my mom was only a co-signer for the loan. She got angry, insisting that the will said differently and that she was entitled to half the car. I stood my ground and told her that the law said differently and that I had documentation proving I made every single payment. I added that my lawyer would be happy to explain it to hers. She tried to guilt-trip me then, saying my mother would be so disappointed in me and that mom had told her she was going to leave her something special, accusing me of trying to steal it from her. I told her I was hanging up and asked her not to contact me again. Her final words were a threat that I'd be hearing from her lawyer. 2 weeks later, I received a formal letter from Linda's lawyer. My lawyer responded with documentation of all my payments, the original loan agreement showing mom as just a co-signer, and relevant legal statutes. We never heard from them again. I later found out through my sister that Linda had been hinting to my mom about wanting a car for months. Mom probably thought she was doing something nice for her friend, not realizing she couldn't actually give away a car that wasn't fully hers to give. I still have my Honda, now fully paid off. I changed my phone number, and Linda apparently found herself a used Kia that she bought with her own money. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.